Hello, it's been a while since I've made a video, so I thought I'd talk a little bit about what I do for a living. I am a micro provider, which, if you have no idea what that means, is pretty self-explanatory. Basically means I'm a self-employed care worker. Now, down here in Somerset, they're making quite a big thing of the micro providers. Other counties, not so much, but here in Somerset, they really are pushing it. I think I've talked briefly about this in the past, but I've been a micro provider for just over a year now. So I thought I'd share some of my experiences. Now, obviously, everyone's experience is going to be completely different. So this isn't a generalisation of what it is to be a micro provider as a whole. This is just based on my own experience. It's not all positive. This isn't going to be a all singing and dancing video, but at the same time, it's not going to be all negative. I'm going to try and be as balanced as I can. So to become a micro provider, first you have to become accredited. So there's quite a long accreditation process, and they check things out like your DBS, data barring service. So if you don't know what that is, it's basically they check your criminal records, and they want to make sure you've got things like a contract in place. They provide a link to a website where you can buy a contract, which I did. Other forms they provide for you, like data protection and loan working policies and all that. So it's all thought out. But you can become a micro provider to become a carer with absolutely no care experience at all, no qualifications, and not really knowing what you're doing. And it's down to the individual customer to interview you to make sure that you're actually decent and worthy of, the job. Of course, a lot of these people, they don't know what they're looking for. They haven't got a clue. They're relying on you to tell them. So in my case, it's fine. I've been doing care work for like 12 years, mainly of people with learning disabilities, and where I am now, my main customers, people with dementia, which I didn't really want to do because I've worked with older people before. You get to know them, you get to know their families, you kind of grow an attachment to them, and then they drop dead. So I prefer working with the younger people, but there's other companies around Somerset, well, particularly this area of Somerset, which take on the younger people with learning disabilities and autism and all that jazz. So I haven't really got that market, but I do have the freedom and flexibility to work when I want to work. I can choose my hours, negotiating it with people, and I can choose my rate of pay, and I can choose what I do and do not do. Of course, it's all in agreement with what I'm able to do and what the customer needs. So yeah, that is a good thing, being able to do that. How have I found it? Well, on one hand, I am on my own. I am self-employed. I don't really have many people to turn to if things go wrong. On the other hand, there is a network of people. There's things, you've got the village agents, and they kind of know about the person because obviously they've already spoken to the person, and then they give you the job, so they kind of know things. So if you do have any problems or queries, you can go to the village agents, but you can't be guaranteed you're going to get the information you need because they might not have it. It's not like working for a company where if you need to know something, you go to your manager and chances are they know, or they know how to find out. So in that respect, you do have to do a little bit more investigating on your own if there is something you need to know. Also, when I worked for a company, there was a lot more open communication with different agencies, different people, like in the NHS or other care companies or just facilities around. Everyone was very much open and talking to each other, and you don't get that so much in this environment. I mean, the people are out there, but you kind of have to hunt for them. If you don't know, then you don't know. It's kind of like you have to really do your research. There are WhatsApp groups, and you can ask things on there. I'm part of 3 groups. There's the admin group where they just send out like information about things that's happening, like training courses or what the council's doing. Then there's the chat group where people just chat to each other. They ask questions about what's going on and stuff. You know, quite a common one is, where can I get PPE, because they've changed how that works. And then the other group is where the jobs come in, and the village agents and other people will post on there talking about jobs, and then basically the jobs come through. They usually come through about mid-afternoon. It's not an exact rule, but generally I've noticed mid-afternoon is sort of the time they come through. If there's any job that you think I can do that, it's, you know, when I'm free, I've got the skills and qualifications to do it, and it's something I can do where I am. Contact the village agent, you request for the information, a bit more info about it, contact number, call them up, arrange an interview. Though at the moment I'm fully booked, which is good because, you know, I'm getting work, but it's also annoying because I'm seeing jobs come in that are thinking, oh, I could do that, but I have to turn it down. And there is other ways. There's a thing called a brokerage system, but I don't use that. I don't get on with it. Some people like it, some people don't. One of the main issues that I do find is trying to sell myself as, you know, an experienced person. I have various qualifications and I have a lot of experience, and some people think I'm just, you know, just some guy, you know, that's just turned up and I don't know what I'm talking about. And I tell them, well, actually, yes, I do know what I'm talking about. I've done this for a long time, and it can be a little bit frustrating when people don't appreciate you. They're going, I've got other customers that think I'm amazing. You know, they think, you know, I am absolutely perfect. I can do everything. I can't do everything, but I can do many things. I am pretty versatile in what I can and cannot do, but you have to be in this job. Like one day I might be helping someone build a shed, the next day I might be helping someone put their socks on. Although I should point out that helping people build sheds is not a common practice in care. But generally my duties are quite basic. You know, I've taken on a few cleaning jobs because I needed the money. I didn't really want to take on cleaning jobs, but I needed the money. There are people that think, you know, I'm just a glorified cleaner, and it's like, no, I'm not a glorified cleaner. It's a little bit frustrating, but then they requested a cleaner and I took on a cleaning job, and so I can see why they think that's what I am. When you need money, you'll take on whatever you can get. I do have another cleaning job, which is actually now turned into a full-time care job, so that's more my area of expertise. Right, I've totally lost my train of thought. I stopped recording because there's too much traffic. Oh yeah, sometimes the roles change. You have to be quite strict about what you agree to do and what you agree not to do, because people will ask you to do all sorts of things, and sometimes it's like, yeah, I can do that, it's just a little thing, but then that will then escalate into, oh, can you also do this, and can you do that? I mean, well, you did this for me, so why can't you do that for me? And you have to be strict, otherwise people start taking the piss. I mean, not deliberately taking the piss, but at the same time, they do try to see what they can get away with. I have agreed to do a certain thing with you. You know, we've agreed. I mean, I have a contract, I have a support plan, and what I'm doing is agreed upon in that, you know, we made the support plan together. We agreed this is what I'm going to do. And I also have a section support plan agreeing what I'm not going to do, because, you know, I have to cover myself. Plus, you know, if they start asking me to do things which I'm not qualified to do, my liability insurance isn't going to be covered. So, you know, you have to say no. And when they say, oh, can you do, you know, these hours and those hours? Again, I also have other customers to consider. So, you know, maybe I could work, you know, this additional hour here or there or whatever. But then I think, well, I've got to get there, and then I've got to get to my next job, and I've got to allow enough time for that travel. But is it worth it? Because, you know, I don't want to drive, you know, a long way just to do something silly. If I'm already in the area, then that's something. But if I'm miles away, and sometimes you do have to turn people down, just be like, no, I can't do that. I'll be too far away. It's not worth my time and my petrol to do this journey, and then I'm going to be too far away from where my next customer is going to be. So sometimes you do have to turn people down. There are people out there that want to just take on everything, and when I was going through the accreditation process, people were saying, don't take on too much, don't overload yourself because you'll burn out. Because people do want to just take on everything. They want to take on every job. It's like, so I take this one, I take that one, because the jobs come from WhatsApp, and they're just like, yes, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this, I can do that. And before you know it, you're driving, all over the place, backwards and forwards like an idiot. And then you don't have any time for yourself or anything. And it's not worth the hassle. It really isn't. So I'm quite strict about that. So you do have to look after yourself. And they do say that. But I also know that people ignore that and then they burn out. And I've seen several people write on some of the WhatsApp groups, mainly the chat one, so that they've burnt out, they've taken on too much. Can anyone take on their customers? Because they've overdone it. I was warned about it by several people, so you should have been warned about it too. And it's just common sense as well. You can only do so much. If you've got a cluster of jobs in one area, then that's not so bad. But if you've got a job here and then a job here, and then you've got to go backwards and forwards, and then another job over here, then another job over there, and you're constantly doing that, I try kind of to put my jobs roughly together-ish. First, it's not so easy because obviously I needed the money. I was just taking whatever I could. So there was a little bit of that, but now I'm more established. I've got money coming in. I'm not so desperate for cash. I can pick and choose a bit more, and I can choose the jobs more in my hometown, which I've done. And where I do have to travel a long distance, I make it worth it by having that as a long day. It's one job I do. I travel quite a way to get there, but I'm there for 5.5 hours, so it's worth it. I've met a few of the other micro providers. There isn't a huge amount of interaction between us. There isn't like a deliberate thing that there isn't a lot of interaction. I don't know how other people do it, because there are some shared jobs. I've got a couple of my jobs are shared with other people, but I very rarely see them. Like, I get their contact details, because we're both working in the same place, but don't often actually talk to each other. Kind of weird, because I'm used to working for like big companies and stuff, or where everyone is talking to each other. You work in the care home, whether it's a small care home with a small selection of staff, or a big home with lots of staff, or whatever, or a company where you're kind of traveling around, but you still kind of interact with each other. You see each other regularly. That just isn't a thing, I found. And I find other people aren't always necessarily willing to want to communicate. That's my experience. I mean, other people's might be different, but I'm used to talking to everyone. So I'm used to like talking to each other, just communicating, just generally, you're both going to the same person, and it's a good idea to communicate these things. And I find that other people just don't want to. There was one lady I went to, and there was a WhatsApp group just for her. So people were messaging on that. I found that to be an exception to the rule as a whole. I mean, they're nice enough people, and I'm not saying, they're horrible people and don't want to talk. It's just like they're doing their thing, because they're self-employed, they've got their company, they're doing their thing, and why would they want to interact with somebody else? But it's just like, for me, that's not how care works. It's never been how care works. I've been doing this since like 2010, and just open communication with all the organizations, all the companies, whether it's a private company, or it's a day center, or the NHS, or other support workers, social workers, doctors, nurses. It's just everyone talking and knowing what's going on. I find it to be vital. One of the other hassles is getting paid. Generally, most people are pretty good. This isn't a huge complaint. There are a couple of issues about getting paid. If someone pays you late, I don't want to be like a hassling person going, give me money. But at the same time, I have provided a service. We have previously agreed upon that you will pay me for this service. We signed a contract to state that I will provide my time and service, and then at the end of the month, I will provide you with an invoice of my hours worked, how much you owe me, and then you will pay me. I'm pretty flexible on how they pay me. They can pay me however they want. I've been paid by cash. A lot of older people prefer check. Younger people prefer bank transfer. By younger, I mean 50s. So I'm pretty flexible about how I get paid. But sometimes people don't pay on time. And it is in the agreement that, you know, if you have continued non-payment, then I'll just end the contract. So I have to hassle people. And plus, it's, you know, it's my livelihood. I'm not doing this for the fun of it. You know, I do care because I like to think I'm a nice, caring person. But it's also a business. I am getting paid. It's a job. You know, I don't want to hassle people. When I work for companies, if I don't know if like people ever did non-payment to the companies, but it was never my department. Someone from the head office or whatever would hassle them and say, give us money. None of my customers at the moment go through funding. I've went through a company, it was the Care Network or something. Anyway, there's loads. I tried looking them up once online, and there's like 1,000,001 companies called the Care Network. Anyway, I'm not with them anymore because they started treating me like shit. They wanted like all my details, like, because I'm already accredited through the council, but then they wanted all the details again, like my DBS, insurance and all that jazz. Apparently they lost it. Yeah, they lost it all. They didn't bother telling me. They just started telling me I couldn't work for this lady and didn't explain why. And one of the village agents had to be like, oh yeah, they've shredded all the documents. So anyway, I can't be bothered with that. One of the reasons I went self-employed is because I could not be bothered with people being idiots. That's part of the reason I did it. Because as a whole, care companies do not care about their staff. I've said this for years. You know, you're going to treat me like shit. I'm just walking. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to try and negotiate or reason with you. It's like, you treat me like shit, I'm gone. Simple as. There's another company called Enum. They do pay, but oh my God, it's an effort. They're very, very, very particular about their invoices. I have a custom invoice. As long as the information is on the invoice that they want, you can have a custom invoices. But every few weeks on the WhatsApp chat group, someone will write on there saying, is there a template for the Enum invoice, you know? And then a few weeks later, someone will be like, oh no, I can't get paid by Enum. Does anyone know what the Enum template looks like? If they just provided the information that they want and said, we want this information. When I started working, getting paid by Enum for one of my customers, the first invoice I sent them about 3 or 4 times because they said, oh, this invoice needs this. It's like, okay, that's fair enough. I'll put that on there. And then they wouldn't pay me and said, oh, it needs this information. I'm like, okay, you could have told me that the first time. Okay. So I put that on there and then I sent it back and they're like, oh, your invoice is missing this. It's like, what the hell? You could have done this all in one email. I was getting paid by Enum for a while. They're not too bad. They take a little while to get the pay through. You send them an invoice and then they take forever to get it back to you, but they do eventually. But I'm not being paid by any of them now. Everything is now direct to the customer, which is how I prefer it. One thing that I do find amusing is when you get accredited, the council want to see your contracts and they want to see your care plan. I'm thinking, okay, it's fair enough. But out of the houses I go to that actually have multiple micro providers going to them, some of them have got contracts. And the ones that I've seen, because I have seen a couple of others that people have got, are very basic. But as far as I can tell, I'm the only person that uses a care plan. I can kind of get why people don't bother making care plans because, you know, they just think, you know, well, oh, it's just unnecessary paperwork. No one's ever going to look at it. My contract clearly states that what I will do is based on what the care plan is. And I need to know what the care plan is. One thing I do find frustrating though, because I like my care plans to be as detailed as possible, so I know as much about the person that I'm looking after as possible to provide the best possible care. But I know that the village agents have information about the person which I don't have access to, and sometimes I feel as if I should have access to it, but it's just the way it goes. So anyway, I will take time and effort to make a support plan or care plan or whatever, and then I work according to that plan. But it also helps if there is any disputes or disagreement about what I do and do not do, and then I can say, look, it's all in black and white. And also another thing that I was told about when I first started, because when I very first was going through the accreditation process, there was a Zoom meeting and we were told about this instance of a lady that got into some trouble and she had no paperwork to back up what she was doing. And she got in a lot of trouble. She lost her accreditation of the council, she lost her job, and she may not have been innocent or guilty. The point is, she had no paperwork to back up what she was saying. She had nothing to fall back on. So I'm very, very particular about the paperwork. I make notes every visit, or try to do them every visit. Sometimes I might forget if I'm running late, but 99.9% of my visits I'll write down notes of what I've done. I have seen that other people do write notes. I've also seen other micro providers that just don't bother with this. They just don't feel it's necessary. And I just think that's dangerous. You should have a paper trail. You should be able to back up what you're doing. Hopefully, nothing will ever happen. I can't see why anything would happen where someone would accuse me of something which justifies, you know, me being reported to the council or, you know, reported to the authorities or whatever. But if that was to happen, I know that I have a paper trail, I have a backup, and I'm safe. I can write down what I've done, I can justify what I've done. I'm not worried, I'm not concerned about that. So all in all, I actually do really enjoy being a micro provider, self-employed carer. And I don't want to make it sound too negative earlier, and I was saying that some people don't like to talk to each other. There are those that are open to talking. I was having to think about it. I was worried I came across a bit too negative. But no, there are those that are open to talking and discussing things and working together. It's just a few people that aren't. One of the annoying things about being self-employed is if I don't work, I don't get paid. There's no sick pay, no holiday pay, which is a bit annoying. But I've taken on customers where it's not the end of the world if I don't turn up, but generally speaking, I take on easy jobs. So it's easy for me because my health is pretty shit. So if there was to be a time when I needed to not be there, it would be all right. I would survive, they would survive, everyone would survive. That's another reason I don't do early morning jobs, because when someone is absolutely dependent on you helping them out of bed in the morning, otherwise they'd just be stuck there all day, and then they might end up soiling themselves and they won't be able to feed. They need someone to turn up. When you work for an organisation, that's fine. I called in to the office, say I'm ill, they send someone else. I've worked for companies where if there is no one else, the management will go out and do the work, but I don't have that luxury. I might be able to post on WhatsApp, you know, can someone cover this, but there's no guarantee, which is why I don't take those jobs, because I don't want the extra pressure of knowing that, you know, they are absolutely relying on me, they are dependent on me being there. So I do pick and choose my jobs. I know people do take on those jobs, and I have seen people write on the WhatsApp groups, you know, can anyone cover? But generally speaking, I think where people are absolutely 100% reliant on someone being there, they need, well, I mean, if I was in that situation, or if I was 100% reliant on someone being there, I would make sure that I would have a backup. If my primary carer couldn't make it, I would make sure I've got a secondary person, or even a third. I would do that. But not everyone does. Not everyone thinks about these things. Another thing that I've noticed is quite different about being a micro provider. I'm taking on people that have never had someone come into their home before. They don't know what it's like. So when I worked for other companies, they were used to it. They'd had people coming in and out for years. They knew how it all works and everything. But I'm going to people now who just don't know how things work. They've never had someone come in their home. You know, they employ me to do a certain thing, and then they try and do that thing. And I get it. You know, you don't want to lose your independence. You don't want to lose what skills that you've already got. You don't want to basically just fade away. I get that. But at the same time, they need to remember they're employing me or another micro provider because they need help with that certain area, which is why I was saying earlier, you need to negotiate what you are to do and what you are not to do, because some people very much want to keep certain levels of independence and they don't want to lose that, and I get that. That's totally cool. Then I have to say to them, you know, you've employed me for a reason. There's a reason I'm here. It's because you are struggling. is because you do need help. If you didn't need help, if you weren't struggling, I wouldn't be here. You know, I don't want to tell them, you know, to just give up. On the contrary, you know, I think it's good that people do what they can. But I've seen several occasions now where people have tried to do things and they've ended up in really bad situations because they just can't do it anymore, and they want to carry on doing things that they just simply can't. I do think, all in all, I am really pleased that I am a micro provider. I'm just doing this outro because I was worried I was sounding a little bit negative before. Every job has its positives and every job has its negatives. And I think, for me personally, positives do outweigh the negatives because I can choose my own hours, my own jobs, what I do. With my health being what it is, there's just no way I'd be able to get a company to agree to the kind of hours I want to work. I do find it would be very tempting to like take work home with me. I mean, I do take some homework with me anyway because I have to, you know, do things like invoices and support plans and stuff. But other things, like when people say, oh, can you do this? I'm like, yeah, I can do that. Just something little. And then I'll do this. Yeah, I can do that. Again, within reason, you know, not in letting people take the piss. And then before you know it, it's like, oh, actually, I've got quite a bit going on at home. So then you have to be like, actually, no, I've got to limit myself, what I can and can't do. And, you know, and if, as I said earlier, if they ask me to do something which is completely unreasonable or just so far outside our agreed terms, then I will turn them down. But if it's something I can do and it's within reason, then I do generally say yes. And of course, if you say yes to one, then you say yes to another, and then before you know it, you are spending quite a bit of time doing things for people in your own free time. But that's why I'm so strict about my hours. Once it hits 6 o'clock in the evening, that's it. I do not want to know. You know, I'm a very kind, caring, compassionate person, but once it's 6 p.m, boom, that's it. I am off duty. I do not want to know. And you have to be like that. You have to be like that. Otherwise, people will call you. I had somebody call me at 11 o'clock at night once. Normally, my phone goes on silent at 10 p.m, but I was watching YouTube videos on my phone in bed. So obviously the ringer was still on. And I was just like, you what? You're ringing me at 11. But ordinarily, as soon as it's 6 o'clock, and other people are like that. The village agents are very much like that. Once it hits, you know, their finishing time, whatever time they finish, that's it. They are finished. And you have to be like that. You absolutely have to be like that. I am going to head off to another job. I'm actually in this field because I'm actually killing time going to another job. I'm a little bit early in the village where I need to be. So I'm just walking around this field before the sun goes completely down and it gets completely dark. All right. Well, I hope this was informative, but all in all, I think it is a good thing. It's good for me. It works out well, providing you can get this support, providing you can get hold of people in the council when you want to, and providing you can get hold of the other agencies when you want to. That's not always easy. Somerset Council are a bit hopeless, but that's a whole other video. All right, on this snowy hill, I say snowy hill, a little bit of snow, I will say goodbye, and I better get to my next job. Bye.